All right, so the Italian game is basically free elo, guys. Like if you're anywhere below 1,000, just start the Italian. You'll get to 2,000 faster than you know it. Now, what this opening is basically doing is it's really good with your fundamentals. So yes, I am a feeder master, and this is 100% what I recommend. This is what worked for most of my students. Like the minute they start Italian, it's rating is through the roof, guys. I'm gonna be showing the plans, the ideas, the mindset that you need to have to play this. And yeah, I might start over explaining the opening just to make sure that you get most of the plans. And at the end of the video, I'll just have like a game which is for the advanced players, which really dives into how this can be played across all levels. So master the Italian game. If you want the complete breakdown, stay tuned to the video. If you just want the game of just like super masterclass, whatever, not, just go to the end and I will basically explain my thoughts through the game I played. So in this position, the Italian game starts off with these three moves: knight f3, e4, and bishop to c4. If you play these three moves, that is officially where the Italian game starts. So if you're playing the Italian for the first time, this is how easy the Italian is, guys. You learn the Italian opening today, and then you start playing the Italian opening today. That is how easy this system is to learn. Now, when I say that my students are playing, like, it just depends. Like, not everybody is going to play e4 and bring out their knight and their bishop. Everybody has their own preferences. With this in general, this opening, you will 100% get rich positions for middle game play. Plus, the moves are completely natural. So, bishop to c4, and now we have a major question of like what black is going to play. So you're going to be seeing three main moves: knight f6, bishop to c5, and pawn to f5, which is the Russo gambit. Like this just got popular out of the blues. So we're going to be covering these three. I might not go over the Russo gambit too much because what we're going to be focusing on is like a system in which you can play cards like all, but still understanding the general ideas of everything. You have bishop c4. Now, if knight f6, what I'm recommending is this move, pawn to d3. And what's going to happen is, if they start to continue to develop naturally, you are just going to get your king to safety. So simple, knight, bishop, king safety. And if they start following, all you're going to be doing is bringing out your pieces. So knight, d3, and now this move, bishop to g5. And a lot of your opponents here, they will just move casually. They will like bring their rook over. They will play like a6 to give their bishop scopes to like go back. And we have officially started the middle game. Now, whenever you have a pinned piece in chess, you want to put pressure on that pinned piece. So here, this move, knight to d5, is already winning the game for the white pieces. What do I mean by this? We are going to be removing the shelter off the king side of black. So just to show you what it looks like, most of your opponents here will start playing moves like pawn to h6. And remember, when somebody attacks you, your first instinct must not be to retreat, has to be to look for a counter attack. So we now look for our checks. Here we're seeing like knight takes f6 is like just crushing. So if pawn takes, bishop takes h6. This you will see, I'll give it like 30% of the times at the lower levels where persons are falling for this. So just ensure that whenever they're attacking like your knight, don't move the bishop, we don't retreat, we simply take on f6 and bishop takes h6. And what's going to happen is, like, even in this scenario where you might still be wondering like, all right, the king is a little bit exposed, but how do I attack? Remember, you're bringing pieces towards that area of the board. So here we need the queen. The heavier pieces, the more points of material you have attacking a certain area, the more dangerous that attack is going to become. And now we see this move knight to h4. So the queen is going to be coming in to h5, and then yeah, it's just like crashing through, guys. You can see let's make like a random move for black, and we are now threatening some stuffs if black isn't careful. Then queen takes f7. We're having this bishop, as I told you guys earlier in the game, is a monster piece when it comes on to the Italian game. So queen to g7 would have been lights, and same thing, if even if he defends the f7 pawn, I know you guys actually see the checkmating too. So here we have the pin on the king. Remember that pin pieces don't protect. We're simply putting our queen on g6, and queen to g7 is indeed checkmate. So that is just one thing where peer persons can actually like tend to go wrong when they're playing the Italian. And trust me, again, you can learn the Italian today, start it today. So a6. Now most of your opponents, if they really know what they're doing, you would start to see this move pawn to h6. Before they castle, they actually push this pawn to h6 to stop that bishop from getting to g5. What I recommend here is simply, again, getting your knight to c3. After they castle, now this bishop, we still have to get it involved in the game, and this is another setup in which you guys can start to use. Bishop to e3. Now what's going to happen is simply the fact that if this is captured, then you have been told that iso pawns, backward pawns, everything could be a weakness in general, but not all the time, or you can't just like take the rules literally like all the time. Like, what is a weakness in general? If your opponents can't really exploit what you're creating, then it's not really as weak as you think. Now the pawn on e3 is doing two things. One, it is stopping black from getting his pieces forward into this game later on in the future, like his knight. Like that pawn is really putting a lot of control, or having a lot of control over some central squares for, again, the game. And the second thing is that we're going to start to swing our queen towards the king side. So knight to h4 in the Italian game is going to be a move you'll be playing a lot, because this is how you actually get the transfer from, as in like your knight moving from like a normal position to a very aggressive position. So knight moving from f3 to f5 is something that you guys need to start looking for in the Italian game. Like in almost all variations, you'll start to look for ideas like this. Also remember that if you're taking away, or start taking towards the center, opening up the file, it also creates like this nice window for this queen to start aiding in the attack. I'm also going to cover a small idea line to show you what this might look like. So let's say that we just go like knight to h4, a6, and like knight f5. Like we have tons of things that we can do here. So we have, like, let's give an example, like knight here, let's just move something random, and then like queen to g3. So by us simply getting our pieces to decent squares, which is why if your opponents struggle with middle game planning, they'll just get crushed. They have to really start knowing what they're doing, or bad things are going to happen to them, guys. You could start doubling your rooks on the file. If you're looking even to the left side of the screen here, you're going to realize that it's just like really shooting into the white's favor. We're going to be doubling, and the same thing that you have been doing in your past games, you're going to be doing here again. Simply improving your pieces. And with this, it's going to get a lot easier. Like, black is going to be the one that has to be finding the only moves, trying their best defenses, while white just plays their normal moves and everything goes according to plan. So this is it. Q to e1 and knight to h4. Just remember these ideas. Double up with the rooks, and everything is at bay. Remember, you can even start looking for like your pawn breaks later down, but crash through on the weak areas. Now we're going to be going into another one now. So bishop c5, knight f6, bishop c5. Just remember, if they play h6 and you can't put your bishop on g5, put it on e3. All right. Now another setup now, which is maybe for like the advanced players, is the fact that they actually put their pawns on c3. Now, c3 is doing two things. One, it prepares the idea of playing pawn to d4 in the future, and also ideas like b4. So you could start to see the queen teaming up with the bishop along this diagonal. Remember that this bishop is a key piece in the Italian game. Like for attacks, it aids with like knight jumps. It aids with queen like batteries. Like you just have to utilize this move properly. And just to break this down a little bit simpler, it's just to show you why persons are playing pawn to c3. Understand that this is indeed killing our knight, which is why at the lower levels I don't want you guys to, or again, like, don't do it unless you 100% know what you're doing. If you do, by all means do this, but just to show you guys exactly again what is happening in these scenarios, we want to play d4, but just like the ideas in which I have been showing you again before, where bishop to g5 is a little bit annoying, it doesn't, it's not really a thing here, because we don't get a chance to put pressure on the pin piece because we blocked out this square with a pawn. So here, if you're pushing pawn to c3, and like you've seen videos with this before, just remember, play h3. You don't want them to start doing the same thing to you with their bishop coming in whenever you play like your pawn to d4. All right, just to make it a little bit simpler for you guys, let's say that black is just castling and white is careless. Let's say that white rushes and plays pawn to d4. And this is what happens when persons don't know what they're doing in the opening too much. We could start seeing where like pressure coming towards this d4 pawn unprepared. We now have a pawn on e4 hanging. If we defend it, then things just start crashing through. Pawn takes d4, pawn takes d4, and now bishop to g4. And the same thing that we were doing to black earlier, where we pinned their knight, and then we started like putting pressure on the pin piece. If you guys remember what was happening earlier, like if we start getting too crazy, then the weaknesses will start to fall. So with c3, just remember, don't push d4 too early unless you have like h3 like down. So you're like preparing pawn to d4 in the future. You can start to have some more preparatory moves, maybe like play b4 and then just get like your pieces out normally, but ensure that d4 is perfectly timed. All right, that is for c3. c3, just remember, if the c pawn is gone, in some variations you even get like a chance to get your queen here. That will be discussed in the game that I'll be showing you at the end. So no, that is knight f6. Also, for extremely low rated players, you can actually look out for like the fried liver attack. At a certain elo, this no longer works, but it will get you some nice wins if your opponents don't know what they're doing. But don't practice this if you're planning to stick with this opening long term. Just keep it simple, play d3, live a nice life. I mean, like, there's a lot of gambits that if you don't know what you're doing, you might get killed. So example, knight f7, bishop takes f2. Believe it or not, if you don't believe me, look to the left of the screen and understand that I just played king to f1 and the bar did not move. That means that king to f1 is the best move in this scenario. Anybody below 1000 is not finding this without preparation. If you want to avoid the theory and just want to play something simple, develop your pieces normally. Don't move the same piece twice. The minute you break principles, you are setting up yourself to actually, again, it's like risky chess. Either you know what you're doing or you don't. Now, for bishop to c5, for persons with the black side, they will normally tend to go for moves like this to avoid the knight coming to g5, which is the fried liver attack. Now, here you have a lot of things, which is why I like e4 so much. You can either choose between like a super aggressive game, a super calm game, or like a really theoretical game. Like, it's all three. Now, I have my personal favorite, which is the Evans, but then, no, I don't really play it so often, but the Evans is super crucial. Whenever you see like the b4 pawn, the same ideas are coming in with like c3 and that bishop lining up on that diagonal. All right. So here, still the same thing. You could just, if you don't want to learn anything too much, you just keep the same setup. Bishop and the knight going here. What do I recommend? Pawn to d3 and simply getting our king to safety. The minute the king castles, we get our knight to c3, bishop to g5. If he plays h6, where does the bishop go? Bishop goes to e3. If he takes, we simply swing our queen, attack the king like a madman. Empty the entire game, guys. Let's go. If we play bishop to e3 and he doesn't take, then that gives us in the future chances to play pawn to d4. So if he doesn't take, we're going to be taking the center even some more. So this is 100% going to have like d4 in the future. With this, remember, I just want to play h3 just to stop this bishop from getting in. And then a very timely d4 will give us the advantage in this game. It's just the ideas. It won't be like the 100% best moves, but if you want, again, just a simple setup. Bishop, pawn, get pieces forward. All right? Now, for the Russo, same thing. If somebody is playing f5 against you, just go pawn to d3. d4 is the main move. If you're playing the Italian for the first time in your life, just do this. d3, and your life will be nice. This is the same thing you'll be doing for most games, and the ideas are still the same. All right? Just remember this. Your life will be absolutely okay. Now, just to show you, like this knight to g5 thing, whenever you're putting pressure, because they waste a move with like their last play with f5, no knight to g5 works because it's very hard for him to stop knight to f7 comfortably. There was a game in which my opponent played like pawn to h6, and again, he wasn't living to tell the tale. Like, just to show you how crushing this is, knight takes e4 followed by queen to h5, and that's game. Guys, that is 100% game. This is things that persons are just not supposed to do unprepared. We're winning like the rooks, everything off the board. So if you're playing against Russo Gambit, just remember pawn to d3. And if they go anything which is like knight f6, we go knight g5. If they take knight f6, we go knight g5, and we play it far level style. If they're just doing nothing, then like just like taking and playing pawn to h6, just remember we can actually sacrifice our knight on e5. So that is with the Russo Gambit. Just remember, even if they don't take, we are playing the exact same setup, guys. We are going to castle our king. We're going to put our knight on c3. We're going to pin the knight if he gives us the chance, as if he manages to play things normally. But again, with this, if he's unable to castle king side, just get like your pieces flying over there. So that's the Russo. Now, if your opponents don't play any of those three moves, so if your opponents are just like h6 or like what my opponent played in this game, which is bishop to e7, this is where we are going to be taking them out of their misery. That is even a text message saying that this must be less violence. Now here, less violence. So here, bishop to e7 is what my opponent played in this scenario. And we're going to utilize some of the plans that we just spoke about, but a little bit more advanced. So here, I recommend this move pawn to d4. So if your opponents play anything except knight f6, f5, or bishop to c5, we immediately, and I repeat, immediately strike with d4. Any other move except those three moves, play d4. And to show you how dangerous this is, if your opponents take, which 100% of them will do, because if they don't take, bad stuff's happen to them also, you're going to be giving them this second pawn. And as you can see with this arrow of the x-ray with the queen, that pawn cannot be captured, guys. So just to show you what this looks like, if this is their taken. Now for most viewers, depending on like what your preference is, if you just like to play active and you don't like to try to go for quick wins, You could just calmly play knight takes c3 and just enjoy the game. This is a completely winning position for the white pieces. We have a lot of activity. As you can see with the bar, this is absolutely fine. You're gonna playing moves like queen to d5 or q to b3, depending on what black plays. But for lower rated players, I'm telling you again, like the minute he takes, this is not even a gambit. It is not even a gambit. Queen to d5. And how does black plan on stopping checkmate? He can't go knight f6 because that is checkmate. There is no way to stop checkmate except giving up a piece, which is this weird looking move, knight to h6. Again, look at the board and tell me, what do you see? He moves his king, that is checkmate. All you have to do is, if he plays anything except knight f6, bishop c5, or f5, we go d4. He takes c3. Somebody who is 3 years old, I am very sure that I could teach them this opening today, and they play it today. So takes queen to d5, and he has to play knight h6, protecting the checkmate. We simply remove the guard. Whatever is defending that f7 pawn, we simply remove the guard. Black castles. Remember that he's also threatening to make this promotion. So we're going to be sacrificing our bishop and taking on c3. Remember that this bishop guards this pawn from the distance. So here, if he's not careful, we simply recapture back and we're all good. But if he's not doing it, we just simply take on g7 and recapture. So black has a very bad king. Our pawn structure around this king, we're going to be castling and still again just playing normal, simple moves. This is again the Italian game, guys. Now, if your opponents, like my opponent in this game, does not take the pawn, like he smells danger, instead he played this move pawn to d6. And this is also giving like the ideas of when somebody plays pawn to c3 in the Italian game. It is aiding moves like queen to b3. Now, with queen to b3, you're going to realize that with the Italian game, f7 is a really tender point. Like knight jumps can help to attack it. If not in this opening, not in this variation in particular, but with the knight on f6, normally you would start getting pressure along that f7 pawn. Here, we're using c3 and the queen battery along that diagonal. Now, again, how does he stop this? Most of your opponents will play knight h6. We simply, again, remove the guard and start crashing through. Bishop takes f7, and he will indeed regret that he was born. King to f8, and we just enjoy like a nice game. If king to d7, you guys, I know you see the checkmate in one. Queen to e6. So this is absolute coffins. If he's not careful, he will play knight h6 and just lose in a matter of moves. In the game, my opponent was a little bit more stubborn, so he played the move knight to a5. Now, remember, this is just how it looks at a higher level, but at your guys' level, they will be blundering effortlessly. Still, we are going to be looking for a counter strike. So check, king moves, and this is your first quiz. So how can we save or not be down material in this position? So we have our queen under attack. The queen can't stay on the diagonal, just showing you what it looks like. If queen to d5, then c6 here, the knight is protected. And I cannot stay and protect this bishop any further without losing material. This queen will be worked like a donkey if I'm not careful. So knight f6, and as you're seeing, the queen has to leave the protection of the bishop. So after bishop takes f7 and king to f8, there is a move or two that saves or keeps the game on level balance for the white pieces, and that's the move queen to a4, or again, you could even look at queen to a3. Both of them are doing the same thing. But queen to a4 and pawn to c5. So what's happening is basically this. If he takes my bishop, I take his knight. And the difference is it's equal material, but at the same time, he has a super weak king. And I'm going to be showing you in this game how you attack those types of positions where the king is not 100% safe. So pawn to c5, he protects the knight with the queen. And now bishop takes g8. We have no rook takes g8. And what are we supposed to be doing here? Let's say that we're seeing this for the first time. This is what I like with the Italian game a lot. It is super simple in terms of principles. I took, and simply did what? Castled my king. Now he has a knight on the rim. We know that knights on the rim are dim. So the minute you get like a knight to the side of the board, try to bring it back in the game as simply as possible. Just like the games in which I was showing you earlier, or the ideas. The minute my knight went to the side of the board, I brought it back to f5 in the game as quickly as possible. So here my opponent played knight to c6, trying to get his pieces coordinated. I took on d4, bishop to d7, and now this is where most persons get carried away. They have already done the attacks and gotten everything to decent squares. They basically ruined the black's king's position. And then they start attacking with the two pieces they have developed. So they would start playing moves like knight f5. They will start like moving their queen all about the place. And then suddenly their opponent bounces back. The minute you believe that you have like an advantage, don't ease up the pressure, or you're just going to be giving up your advantage. Still, try to get as many pieces into the game as possible. If you're not seeing a way to crash through, you are lacking pieces. Bring more pieces, guys. So knight to c3, bishop to f6, and knight to e2. So what's happening is that I'm paving the way for the d pawn. Like, I'm going to be putting pressure on that. Also remember that when his king is weak, the more pieces I have on the board, the more dangerous I look. If you're attacking, keep pieces on the board. That's where you know that danger is going to be for this king. Like if I'm trading for a knockout, guys. So knight f4. Why did I play knight f4? So this king to f7 move looks like he wants to play rook to e8. And remember, yes, this is going to be what you guys want to do in general. You want to take out your pieces normally, get everything castled, get everything safe. But the further you go up the ladder, you're going to be understanding that you need to be stopping your opponent's plans in the process. So yes, I want to get my bishops out and maybe connect my rooks. But at the same time, he wants to get his king to safety. So what I'm doing with this knight to f4 move is, the minute he moves his rook, just giving you like a quick example. Like let's say he's about to castle his king. Then queen to c4 check. He will not be able to get there in time. So I am putting moves forward to actually stop black from making his own plans. If I just played queen check immediately, then there would be this move bishop to e6. So that's what this move is doing. Knight f4 simply stops the bishop from getting to e6 and prepares a check on the light squares. If you can put like even, again, your heavy pieces on the same color complex as like your opponent's king, like do it. Just get pieces aggressive, guys. Now we have g4, and remember in chess, when somebody attacks you, your first instinct cannot be to run away. Counter attacks. I didn't like move my knight back. I simply gave a check, and I always look to get my pieces forward. So here, moves that come to mind: knight d5, knight e6, or knight h5. So all three are good. In the game, I choose knight h5. And after king to h6, takes, and knight to d5. I am getting my pieces again in my opponent's half. Queen to d4. So what I basically did was bring the queen out for some tempos. So, you know, invite her to dinner. Queen to f6, knight to d5. I know it's getting kicked all around the board. Remember what I told you guys. If you're attacking, you don't want to be trading pieces. If you are attacking, like it's common knowledge, right? You're attacking. If you get rid of the attackers, then you will no longer be attacking. So keep the pieces, put the pressure on the board. The reason why this king is still classified as weak is because it is in danger, guys. We have dangerous pieces to attack that king side. So here, queen to e5, and this is another thing that you guys need to understand. You don't have to be putting your rooks or moving it normally for it to be active. You can utilize your pawn breaks. A piece, long range pieces like the bishops and the rooks, they can stay on the same square that they started off with, or even on the back rank, and still be active. This bishop on c1 is absolutely active, putting pressure on the long diagonal. This rook doesn't even have to move. It's putting pressure on the open file just by putting this pawn to f4. If this is captured, we know what's happening. We bring our bishop into the game with check, and that's a fork. And if he's in the game, he tried a counter attack, which is knight to d4. Remember, we're not trading. If I take, he takes my queen, that's a trade. I simply move my queen out of the way, and the same problem exists. If the queen moves anywhere, then I simply win the knight, just showing you. Just win the knight. And if he does not remove himself off this diagonal and keeps the queen on the same, we took on g5, and my opponent resigned. This is what an attack looks like, and you can actually again just try out the Italian game, like, share, and subscribe for more videos like this. If you guys even want more in-depth ways on how this was actually checkmate, I'm just gonna be putting this on the board, like knight check. So if this king moves, knight check, this is obviously checkmate in 1. If he takes here, I'm gonna be putting this in slow motion. So it is knight check. Only moves are king here and king there. If he goes king to h5, the same moves are going to be played. h3 and here. So thanks again for watching. Play the Italian game, learn some middle games, and peace.